The sun of the alien world hung low in the sky, glowing red like a dying fire. The air felt heavy inside the auction yard, where creatures from many planets gathered to buy and sell war animals. Tall aliens shouted numbers, waved credit chips, and checked the strength of every creature on display. Among the loud noise and strong smells stood one creature that no one wanted. It was a graven, a large war horse species known for speed and power. But this graven was not like the others. Its body looked thin and its legs trembled slightly. Its armor plates were cracked and its mane was dull. The other gravens were proud and tall, but this one stood alone in a small corner, as if trying to hide from the world. The aliens walked past it without stopping. Some pointed at it and laughed. One merchant tapped its weak leg and shook his head. "This one is useless," he said. "Barely fit to carry a child, let alone a soldier." Another alien added, "If anyone buys this thing they must be a fool." The graven heard every word. It lowered its head, trying to look small so no one would hurt it. Its eyes did not shine with anger or strength like the other war beasts. Instead, they held fear and quiet sadness. It had been trained harshly, pushed too hard, and given no care. Now the auctioneers only wanted to sell it quickly or send it away forever. Near the edge of the crowd stood a young human girl named Lyra. She was small compared to the giant aliens around her, and she wore simple clothes covered in dust from her repair shop. She came to the auction not to buy anything big, but to look for metal scraps or old tools she could fix. She never planned to buy an animal, especially not a war creature. But her eyes kept returning to the lonely graven. Something about it made her stop walking. Maybe it was the way it stood apart from the others, like it wanted to disappear. Or maybe it was its eyes, tired, scared but still alive. Lyra felt a strange pull inside her heart, a feeling that whispered, "This creature needs help." She stepped closer to the graven while the auction moved on to another beast. The graven saw her and flinched, expecting another harsh hand. But Lyra only stood still. She spoke softly. "Hey there, it's okay. I won't hurt you." Her voice was gentle, nothing like the auctioneers yelling nearby. The graven lifted its head slightly. It did not move closer, but it did not move away either. That small change was enough for Lyra to know that it understood her kindness. A rough voice behind her broke the moment. "Girl, stay away from that one," the handler grunted. "It's weak. Not worth your time." He tugged the graven's reins hard and the creature winced. Lyra stepped between them without thinking. "Stop pulling it like that," she said. The handler laughed at her. "What? You planning to buy it? It's cheaper than a broken hover cart." Lyra felt her heart beat faster. She looked at the graven again. Its legs shook not just from weakness but from fear. She took a breath. "How much?" she asked. The handler blinked. "You're serious?" He named a price so low it shocked even him. He expected her to walk away. Instead, Lyra reached into her pocket and took out all the credits she had saved from weeks of repair work. It was almost everything she owned. She placed the chips in the handler's hand. The aliens nearby burst into laughter. "A human girl bought the reject," one shouted. "What will she do with that weak beast?" another joked. "Maybe it can carry her tools," someone else said. Lyra ignored all of them. She slowly moved toward the graven, holding the reins gently instead of pulling them. "I'll call you Wing," she said softly. "Not because you can fly, but because I think you can rise again." The graven looked at her, confused but calmer than before. It followed her step by step as she led it out of the noisy auction yard. The sun was setting behind them, painting the sky with warm colors. The laughter from the aliens faded away as Lyra and Wing walked down the quiet road toward her small workshop. For the first time in its life, the graven felt a touch that was not harsh. For the first time, it walked beside someone who did not judge it by its weakness. Lyra did not know what the future would bring, and Wing did not understand why she chose it. But together they took their first steps toward a story that no one at the auction could ever imagine. That night, Wing rested in a soft, warm space instead of a cold metal cage. And Lyra sat beside it, whispering, "You're safe now." Lyra woke up early the next morning, long before the twin suns rose over the horizon. Her small repair shop smelled like metal oil and warm dust. But that morning there was something new, a soft breathing sound coming from the corner where Wing rested. She walked quietly toward the graven, not wanting to scare him. Wing lifted his head slowly. His eyes were still unsure, still expecting pain, but he no longer trembled the way he did at the auction. Lyra smiled. "Good morning, Wing," she said softly. "You must be hungry." Wing did not understand her words, but he understood her tone. It was calm, soft, and warm. He watched her as she mixed a bowl of gentle feed she bought with the last of her credits. When she placed it in front of him, Wing hesitated. He looked at the bowl, then at her as if asking permission. Lyra nodded. "It's all for you." Wing took a slow bite. Then another. Soon he ate like he had not tasted food in days. Lyra felt happy watching him. She whispered, "You're safe now. I promise." Outside, the alien townspeople passed by her shop. Some peeked inside and saw the thin graven. They remembered the auction. They whispered and laughed. "That human girl wasted her money," one said. "That creature will never be a real war beast," another added. Lyra heard them, but she did not look their way. She had made her choice and she would stand by it. After Wing finished his food, Lyra approached him with a small brush. She held it up so he could see it first. "I'm going to clean you," she explained, even though he did not know her language. She wanted him to hear her voice and understand her intentions. Wing took a small step back, nervous, but he did not run. Lyra moved slowly. She touched his mane carefully, brushing away dirt and knots. Wing flinched a few times, expecting rough treatment, but she never hurt him. Little by little he relaxed. The dull look in his eyes softened just a little. Lyra worked for hours. She cleaned his cracked armor plates, washed his legs and checked every injury. Many wounds were old. Some were from harsh training. Some were from neglect. As she worked, she spoke to him like a friend. "You're stronger than they think," she said. "I know it." Wing's breathing grew calmer. He lowered his head and let her touch him without fear. He did not understand why she cared so much, but he felt something he had never felt in his life: trust. Later that day, Lyra walked him outside. The sunlight made his coat shine slightly after her cleaning. Not fully bright, not yet healthy, but better than before. They walked slowly down the path behind her shop. Wing moved carefully, still weak, but he stayed close beside her. Some aliens stopped to stare. A few laughed again. "Look at that pathetic creature," one said. "Even with cleaning, it is still useless." Lyra looked at them and smiled politely. She did not argue. Instead, she turned to Wing and said, "Ignore them. You don't need their approval." Wing flicked his ears. He noticed her calm voice and he noticed that she did not fear the aliens. For the first time he wondered if he could be brave too. As they walked, Lyra reached out and placed her hand gently on his neck. Wing felt warmth spread through his body, a feeling he had almost forgotten. He took a deeper breath and stepped a little more confidently. They continued their slow walk until they reached a field outside the town. The grass was soft and the wind carried the smell of open space. Wing's eyes brightened slightly. This place felt peaceful compared to the loud auction yard and harsh training grounds. Lyra looked at him carefully. "This is where we'll start," she said. "Not war training. Just healing. Just strength." Wing lowered his head and touched her shoulder gently as if thanking her. Lyra felt her chest warm with emotion. She had made a choice at the auction, one that everyone mocked, but now she felt completely sure. She did not buy Wing because she wanted a war horse. She bought him because she saw a spark inside him that others ignored. Over the next few hours, she guided him through small steps. Slow walking. Controlled breathing. Gentle stretching. Nothing harsh. Nothing painful. Wing followed her movements, learning her rhythm. His legs wobbled but he pushed through. Not for war. Not for alien masters. For her. The suns began to set, painting the sky orange and gold. Lyra led Wing back to the shop. He walked more steadily with less fear in his steps. When they reached the doorway he stopped and looked at her. Lyra smiled. "You did well today." Wing's tail moved slightly, just a small sign but a real one. A sign of trust. A sign of hope. That night, as Wing rested peacefully, Lyra sat beside him and whispered, "Everyone else gave up on you. But I won't. I chose you. And together, we'll change everything." Wing closed his eyes slowly and calmly. For the first time in his life he believed her. Lyra woke up before sunrise again. The sky was still dark and the air was cool. She stretched her arms, wiped her eyes, and then looked toward the corner where Wing slept. The Graven opened his eyes slowly when he sensed her movement. His ears twitched and he lifted his head. He did not shake or flinch anymore. He simply watched her with quiet curiosity. Lyra smiled. "Good morning, Wing. We have a big day today." Wing didn't understand the words, but he understood her tone. He stood up carefully. His legs were still thin but they did not tremble like before. Lyra gave him fresh food and water and Wing ate calmly. After he finished, she walked around him, checking his body. She touched his legs, his neck, and his sides. Wing stayed still. The old fear in his eyes slowly faded each day. When the twin suns began to rise, Lyra led him out of the shop and into the open field behind the town. Dew covered the grass and the fresh morning light made everything feel clean and new. Lyra breathed deeply. "This is where we build your strength," she said softly. Training began slow. Lyra made sure every step was safe. First, she guided Wing in a wide circle. They walked slowly, one careful step at a time. Wing's body was still weak, but with each lap, his movements became smoother. He learned that Lyra would never push him too hard. She stayed at his side, giving soft encouragement. After walking, she taught him simple commands. She raised her hand. "Stop." Wing stopped. She moved her hand forward. "Walk." Wing walked. Her voice was warm and her movements were gentle. Wing listened closely. He wanted to understand her. He wanted to follow her. Aliens passing by stopped to watch. Some pointed. Some whispered. Some joked. "Why train or reject? It's a waste of time. That thing will never carry a rider." Lyra ignored them, but Wing heard every sound. His ears twitched nervously. Lyra noticed. She placed her hand on his neck and gave a gentle rub. "Don't listen to them. Listen to me." Wing calmed again. He trusted her voice more than the crowd. As days passed, their routine grew stronger. Lyra repaired old training equipment and built small obstacles from scrap metal. They practiced walking over low beams, stepping around cones, and standing still on command. At first, Wing stumbled often. Sometimes he tripped. Sometimes he froze. Each time, Lyra stayed patient. She never raised her voice. She never pulled harshly. She simply repeated, guided, and encouraged. Wing learned something new. He was allowed to try again. One afternoon, after many days of practice, Lyra decided it was time for the next step. She placed her hands gently on Wing's side and whispered, "I'm going to try sitting on you today. Only if you're ready." Wing stood still. His heart beat faster, but he did not step away. He trusted her completely now. Lyra moved slowly. She placed her foot into the side strap she built, climbed carefully, and sat lightly on his back. Wing tensed at first. His muscles stiffened. His breath grew shaky. Lyra leaned forward and whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." Wing relaxed. The fear inside him had not disappeared, but Lyra's calm voice made it smaller. They took their first steps together, slow, almost shaky, but filled with meaning. Lyra's balance was light. She did not press down on him. She guided him with her voice, not force. Wing followed every sound, every movement. Aliens nearby stared in surprise. "Impossible," one said. "That weak thing can carry her?" another asked. No one laughed this time. Lyra did not look at them. She focused only on Wing. When he completed a full circle with her on his back, she gently slid down and hugged his neck. "You did it. I'm so proud of you." Wing made a soft sound, a quiet rumble deep in his chest. It was not fear. It was not pain. It was something warmer, something brighter. A feeling he had never known before. Evenings became their favorite time. After training, Lyra cleaned Wing's coat, brushed his mane, and polished his armor plates. Wing stood still, eyes half closed, enjoying every touch. He had lived years with harsh hands, but now he learned that touch could be gentle and caring. Their bond grew stronger each day. Wing followed her even without a rope. He came when she called. He lowered his head for her to brush. When she was sad or tired, Wing nudged her with his nose, offering comfort. One night, Lyra sat beside him under the stars. She leaned against his warm side and whispered, "Everyone thinks you're weak, but they don't see what I see." Wing lowered his head and rested it softly on her shoulder. "You're not just learning to fight," she whispered. "You're learning to trust. And trust is stronger than any weapon." Wing closed his eyes. For the first time in his life he felt safe. He felt strong. Not because of training, but because of her. Together they were becoming something no alien in the town expected. Something powerful. Something unbreakable. A true team. The next few weeks passed quietly, but the quiet did not last. One morning, Lyra heard loud alarms echo through the town. Wing lifted his head sharply, sensing danger before she even stepped outside. The ground shook slightly and distant roars filled the air. Something was wrong. Lyra rushed to the door. Outside, aliens ran in panic. A large transport ship had crashed on the outskirts of town. It carried mining robots, strong, heavy machines meant for digging deep rock. The crash damaged their control systems, and now some of the machines moved on their own, smashing anything in their path. They were not evil, just confused and dangerous. Town guards gathered, but they shouted in fear. They were too afraid to go near the broken machines. The robots stood tall like metal beasts, swinging their huge drilling arms wildly. No one dared to approach them. Wing stepped beside Lyra. He lowered his head as if asking, "What should we do?" Lyra felt her heart race. She knew the robots could hurt many people. But she also knew something else. Wing was faster and braver now. Maybe not as strong as the trained war Gravens, but far calmer and far more focused. She touched his neck. "Wing, I know this is dangerous, but I think we can help." Wing breathed deeply. His legs did not shake. His eyes did not fill with fear. He looked at her with trust. He was ready. They hurried toward the crash site. Aliens saw them coming and began shouting. "That is the reject beast. It cannot help. Take it away before it gets hurt." Lyra ignored them. Wing walked beside her with steady steps. Dust and smoke filled the air as they reached the field. The broken robots stomped around, confused, smashing rocks and metal pieces. The ground vibrated with each hit. One robot turned toward a group of young aliens who were trapped behind fallen debris. They screamed, unable to run. The robot lifted its heavy arm, preparing to swing down. Lyra pointed. "Wing, we have to go." Before she even finished speaking, Wing charged forward. His legs, once weak and trembling, now moved with purpose. Lyra ran beside him, keeping close. Aliens watched in shock as the thin, unwanted Graven sprinted toward danger without fear. The robot swung its arm. Wing dodged right, narrowly avoiding the metal drill. Dust flew around them, but he did not stop. Lyra guided him with quick commands. "Left. Stop. Move back." Wing followed every word. Together they reached the trapped aliens. Lyra jumped off and helped pull the young ones free. The robot turned toward them again. The ground shook as it took another step. Wing looked at Lyra. She nodded. He stepped between the robot and the children, standing tall and fearless. His body was still slim, still not fully strong, but his courage filled the space around him. The robot raised its arm again. Wing held his ground. When the arm came down, he moved fast, much faster than anyone expected. He darted to the side, then struck the robot's leg with a strong kick, hitting the weak joint Lyra had spotted earlier. The metal cracked and the robot stumbled. Aliens gasped. "That beast, it fights with strategy. It listens to the human girl. How is this possible?" Wing backed away, ready for the next move. Lyra shouted, "Again, Wing." The lower joint. Wing charged once more. He struck the same spot, and this time the robot collapsed sideways, its systems shutting down from the damage. The danger was gone. Silence fell. The trapped aliens stared at Wing with wide eyes. The town guard stepped closer, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Lyra hugged Wing tightly. "You did it, you were amazing." Wing lowered his head and touched her shoulder gently. He was tired but proud. Before they could leave, another machine roared to life on the far side of the crash. This one was bigger and heavier. Lyra took a deep breath. "Wing, are you still with me?" Wing lifted his head. His eyes were steady. He stepped forward and leaned against her hand. It was his way of saying yes. They approached the second robot carefully. It swung wildly, more out of confusion than anger. Lyra studied its movements and spotted a loose panel near its power core. "There," she said, pointing. "If we hit that, it will shut down." Wing understood. He moved slowly this time, studying the machine like a hunter. When it swung, Wing ducked. When it stepped, he circled. Lyra gave short, calm commands. Wing followed them like a perfect partner. Finally, he jumped and kicked the loose panel with all the strength he had. The robot jerked, sparks flying. It froze in place and powered down. The field grew quiet again. Aliens who once mocked him now stared in awe. "That is the same weak horse from the auction? It saved us. A human girl did this? With that creature?" Lyra rested her forehead against Wing's. "You were brave," she whispered. "You chose courage today." Wing breathed softly, proud and calm. For the first time, the town did not see a reject. They saw a hero. Team. A miracle they never expected. And Wing knew, deep in his heart, that he would follow Lyra anywhere, not because she bought him but because she believed in him before anyone else did. The next morning the town felt different. The air was calm but the people were not. Everywhere Lyra walked, aliens whispered to each other. They did not laugh at her anymore. They did not call Wing useless. Instead they stepped out of the way and stared with wide, amazed eyes. Wing walked beside her, his steps slow but confident. He was still thin, still healing, but he carried himself with pride now. For the first time in his life he walked without fear. Some young aliens ran up to Lyra. They stopped a few steps away from Wing, unsure if they should come closer. One of them finally spoke. Is it true? Your Graven saved the trapped kids yesterday? Lyra nodded. Yes, but he didn't do it alone. We worked together. The young aliens looked at Wing with awe. Can we touch him? One asked shyly. Lyra looked at Wing. Only if he wants to. Wing lowered his head gently. The children reached out with careful hands and touched his mane. Wing did not flinch. He let them pet him and their faces lit up. Word spread fast. By midday, even the town guards came to see them. The captain, a tall alien with sharp armor and colder eyes, approached slowly. He studied Wing from head to toe. This is the same Graven from the auction? He asked. Lyra nodded again. The captain crossed his arms. How did you turn a weak, rejected beast into this? Lyra placed her hand on Wing's neck. I didn't turn him into anything. I only gave him trust. And time. Wing stepped forward, standing between Lyra and the captain, not aggressively but protectively. The captain raised his eyebrows. He guards you like you are a queen. Lyra shook her head with a small smile. No. He guards me because I stood by him when no one else did. Later that day, the town held a meeting. They wanted to discuss the damaged robots and how to prevent such accidents in the future. Lyra sat on the edge of the crowd, not expecting to be part of the conversation. Wing stayed behind her, watching everything with alert eyes. To her surprise, the mayor called her name. Lyra stepped forward. The crowd turned as she walked into the center. Wing followed close, each step steady. The mayor looked down at her kindly. You and your Graven saved this town. Twice. No guard dared to go near those machines, but you two did. Lyra felt her face warm. She shook her head. We only did what was needed. Exactly, the mayor said. And that is why we owe you thanks. More aliens stepped forward. Some bowed their heads to Wing. Some thanked Lyra directly. Others simply stared, still trying to understand how such a weak creature had shown such courage. Wing stood tall, his eyes calm but alert. He was not used to attention, but he stayed by Lyra's side. One old merchant approached next. He was the same alien who had mocked Wing at the auction. Now he looked embarrassed. I was wrong, he admitted. I judged this creature too quickly. And I judged you too quickly, human girl. Lyra smiled softly. Everyone makes mistakes. The merchant swallowed and nodded. Then slowly he reached out a hand toward Wing, seeking permission, not demanding. Wing looked at Lyra. She gave him a nod. Wing allowed the touch. The merchant's eyes widened with respect. That evening, Lyra took Wing to the open field again. The suns were setting, painting the sky pink and gold. Wing breathed deeply, enjoying the quiet after the busy day. You were amazing today, Lyra said. Not because of the praise, but because you stayed calm. Wing lowered his head and pressed it gently against her shoulder. She laughed softly and stroked his neck. You've changed so much. You're stronger now. Not just in your body but in your heart. Wing closed his eyes. His chest rose and fell slowly, a sign of peace. Later, as they walked back to the shop, they passed the same aliens who once mocked them. This time no one laughed. No one pointed. Instead they stepped aside with respect. Some nodded. Some saluted. Some simply watched with quiet admiration. Lyra realized something important. Respect did not come from strength or size. It came from courage, loyalty, and heart. And Wing had all of those now. When they reached the shop, Lyra whispered, Everyone sees you differently now. But I've seen you this way since the first day. Wing rested beside her as night settled over the town. Stars filled the sky, shining bright. A once weak war horse, rejected by everyone, now stood tall and proud because one human girl believed in him. Their bond was stronger than fear. Stronger than doubt. Stronger than anything the galaxy could put in their way. Together they had earned respect, not through force but through trust. And their story was only just beginning.